Hello, everyone. Welcome as you come in. Today's the 25th of October, 2021. I've been out and about doing some things, and yet I've still been in touch with things that are going on with friends and on Twitter, on news items, things like that. And enough of this is starting to really happen, increase, as I say in the beginning of this video, a confluence of tragedies. By the way, a confluence is actually the coming together of two rivers, okay? That's really what a confluence is, but I kind of figured it fit what I'm trying to say here because these things really are mounting up, and uh, it's just, I don't know if, about for you, but for me, I wouldn't say it's necessarily overwhelming, but it is definitely taking up a lot of my time and my thoughts and etc. Hello again as you all come in. I need just a little more water here. Pardon me. That's all this is. Okay. All right. The Canary Islands are looking pretty bad right now. That entire mountain there on La Palma is pretty much about ready to disintegrate. Hi, Roosevelt. Oh, sorry I didn't call you Roosevelt. I've been preoccupied. Anyway, and you'll see some of that here in a few minutes. I won't get into any particulars, but so as we talked about before, I when I talked to BP Earthwatch Jesse about any possibility of a tsunami, tidal wave hitting the east coast of the United States, I still don't see that happening, and I think most people don't. Even if that entire southern half of that island went in, sunk in the ocean, I don't think we'd see that here in the United States on the East Coast. Barring any other particular circumstances with that, there are just too many things between us and that island. But it's interesting that Mount Etna in Italy has come back alive, and it's been quite a serious eruption. And we have those going on all over the world right now. And of course, Jesse from BP Earthwatch and other people that understand these events, which I don't. I'm not a volcanologist. I'm not a geologist. I just know that there are warning signs, at least for the people near those places, if not for all of us, because they worry about carbon dioxide, right? The carbon dioxide, the big, climate change, and it's linked to carbon dioxide because we're made out of carbon, right? So they really want to tax us. You know the whole story there. Well, these volcanoes are spewing out more carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, and all those other things into the atmosphere that what we exhale, what we even expend in our vehicles and all of our uh, internal combustion engines don't match what that one volcano is putting out right now. We could do it for 100 years and we wouldn't put out as much as that volcano is. It's all ridiculous what these scientists are doing. They're trying to make us worship them. It's a religion now. It has nothing to do with skepticism and debate. It all has to do with you have to believe what they tell you. It's really serious. It's Marxist. It's Marxist all the way. And Stephen Coughlin you can find him at Stephen underscore Coughlin on Twitter, and he's also at Unconstrained Analytics, as I've explained uh, on the web. But he explains all this, how they're using these things against us, uh, and it really is a war. So anyway, the volcanic thing is getting pretty serious. I don't know where that's actually going to go. I just know that we need to really keep an eye on it. I don't think that the East Coast people of the United States have much to worry about, but that's considering where the problem is right now. I don't know what's actually happening in the center of the Earth or along the crust or any of those. Again, I'm not a volcanologist or a geologist, but I I would suspect that there could be other areas that could come alive here pretty soon. So just be aware of that, and these are happening all over. So who knows what the real situation is? Do I think that they're being manipulated by the elites, the New World Order, the scientists? No, I really don't, because I think this would go against their program. I don't think they'd want this for the programs that they're trying to do any more than they'd want the entire communications grid to be taken down, because that's their means of controlling us in the way it's going to be, even when they get the nanotech totally wired up inside of us so we don't have to carry our phones. They'll still need that outside surveillance system, and they can't do it without electronics, okay, without power. So I see some other things happening on that as far as how it'll impact us. But at any rate, I thought I'd bring that up just so that I am aware of it. The situation with the supply chain and all of that is getting more serious every day, just as we talked about. Yeah, that's true, Roosevelt. Nature will respond to all the manipulations of these evil psychopaths. That's exactly right. Uh, through divine intervention and Starfire Horizons explaining here, I do believe that. Unfortunately, when I see these things happen, it's always the little people that get hurt the most, and that's my beef with God on this whole thing. Yeah, I argue with God all the time, all the time, which I might talk about a little bit today. But at any rate, the supply chain situation, of course, as we talked about several months back, where we told you that the military, the field grade officers in particular, were saying get themselves ready. Not only the supply chain breakdown, but also this entire thing with the forced GMIs and how that's affecting everybody. A lot of those people in the military knew they had to have a fallback position, so they wanted to get some supplies ready to help them weather the storm. So all this has turned out to be exactly as we've been talking about. The interesting thing is these ships offshore, these cargo ships, and as I've talked about before, that matches up with Revelation, where it talks about that the merchants would stand afar off as they see Babylon, basically fall apart. Whether by design or some natural consequence, it doesn't matter. The point is, it will happen, and it is happening. GMI. Somebody tell Sarah Kay what GMI is. So, please. So, I've been looking at this thing from a military point of view, and of course, it is a siege. They're conducting siege warfare, as you've often heard me talk about, conducting siege warfare on us with the supply chain breakdown, the food interruption, the job situation now, the currency situation, everything. It's siege warfare. And it's being done deliberately, and it's being done not just globally, of course, which it is. Every nation's at war with their own people, very, very much so. There are a few exceptions, but by and large, at least in the so-called democracy, Western democracies and liberty-loving nations, from New Zealand and Australia, all the way over to Spain and France and et cetera, et cetera. They're the worst in the whole world, even more so. I mean, there's some problems, of course, in China, the way they're handling things, and some of the other totalitarian governments, but the ones that are really being the most tyrannical are the supposed liberty-loving nations, and they are at war with their people. That prime minister from New Zealand, man, she's wicked. Oh no, she's worse than that. But again, I have to be careful what I say, right? So at any rate, I'm looking at these ships, and of course, all of this matches up with all the different plagues. The famine now can be artificially induced, and they're doing that absolutely. The scriptures talk about that there will be more of a famine of the word of God than a famine of seed time and harvest. Yet, famine is also a part of the attack on God's people in the last days and the world in general, so that these evil doers can take over. And Kissinger, of course, said that food would be a weapon, right? So we see all these attacks and these plagues happening. And going back to the ships again on this siege warfare, I'm not saying this is the case, and I've mentioned it before, but I really am beginning to wonder what could possibly be in a lot of those cargo ships, because where do they come from? China, most of them on the West Coast come from China. And I did see a picture, and I mentioned this about 2 or 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, that I did notice a cargo ship with a lot of people on the deck going in and out of one of the Connex containers, one of those big storage containers, which means possibly that those storage containers are actually and I'm just speculating here, are a complex of living quarters for people. And what it looked like to me was military age men. I couldn't tell what their race or ethnicity was, um, but that's concerning. So a lot of people, including myself, I thought, well, how are the Chinese, if they were going to invade the United States? I mean, they'd have to have an armada, right? They'd have to have huge airplanes. Matter of fact, I did have a dream once about these airplanes going overhead, but I don't. That's been a couple of years back. But at any rate, how would they get these troops here? Well, we'd see them coming unless it was in a situation like this where we think it's just a supply backup, and yet they could be on board those ships. We already know, as I've talked about for years now, several years, that there are Chinese forward special operations forces here already, and other countries. I mean, the United States is like the prize to take this down. So, and our DoD and our IC have all turned against us. They're working for the opposition now. They're all traitors. Maybe not each and every person in there, but certainly the brass of, as I said, and I'm going to get to that again in a minute. But my point is, we have Chinese troops in Canada. Most likely, there are some in the areas of Central and South America. And now we have these ships on our coasts, hundreds, if not thousands of them. And the big question is, how are they supplying themselves? Well, let me tell you militarily how you do that, in case you don't know. Because we would notice if our DoD was on our side, so there's a possibility they're not, and they're letting this come through. The way you supply them that large of an armada is that a lot of them would be supply ships having food, medicine. In other words, just like a regular armada that's moving forward, you have ships that carry, weapons, ammunition, food, water, medical supplies. So a lot of those could be, a few of those could take care of the whole group of ships out there. Again, I'm speculating here, but I'm really beginning to wonder what's happening. I don't think it's simply that. I mean, certainly the siege warfare, the cutting off of our supplies and our ability to get parts and things like that is certainly all part of that. But what if there is a bigger picture? And I'm bringing that up because of what's in the description box below. I've placed a link there that was sent from a good friend of mine. He's a doctor, but he keeps track of a lot of the things that are going on, and we discuss things from time to time. And he found this, and I've kind of known about it for a while. So what I would like you to do when we get done here, it's not a long article. You can read it in probably 5 or 10 minutes, and I'd like you to go read it. And it has to do with military and veteran military realizing that we are at war already. And the war is being waged upon us by those who swore to protect us, not just the global cabal, which is using our own institutions against us, but those in our institutions as well. And I've talked about that for a long time, my FBI corruption series, the motto of my channel on here, that the IC is our most dangerous domestic enemy, and that includes the Department of Defense, okay, and the Department of Justice, et cetera, et cetera. Even the Department of State, I could tell you a story about that, but I can't. So we have this situation that's discussed in this description box below, recognizing that something is going to have to be done relatively soon. And I keep hearing, and I'm not calling for anybody to go out and do anything here, because you won't amount to anything on your own anyway. Okay, I've told you you have to operate under some type of a legitimate, competent state authority, or you'll just, it's just, it would be nearly impossible. But these people are saying that that things are going to have to be taken out surgically by special operations teams who are veterans, etc. Now, you'll see that in the description box below. That sounds like a good idea, ladies and gentlemen. Once we go down that path, there won't be any turning around. This thing will just totally go crazy. But I understand the frustration of the people that wrote the article and the people that are in that position. And a lot of conservative, alternative media, even conservative media pundits and people on that side, they keep saying, "Well, we don't want violence. We don't want violence." But in the history of trying to right a ship that's as off course as this one is, and in fact sinking, there is no other alternative. I just I'm just letting you know that there is no other alternative. Whether it's brought on by divine intervention, which could be, helping people to know who and where to go after these kinds of characters, or uh, people having to just stand up for principle on their own. There are a lot of dangers in this, like I've talked about, infiltration by the feds, et cetera, et cetera. But anybody who says that we can turn this thing around by a vote in 2022 or 2024, they're out of their minds. It's too far gone at this point, and no successful change of government has ever occurred when it's gone to this extent without the use of arms. Okay, so that's what these people are talking about in they do it circumspectly, but you'll read between the lines and you'll see what's happening. Okay, so it's getting to a fever pitch at this point. Now I got to point out one error I saw in the article, and this was typical. I mentioned it here about 2 weeks ago because it showed up in a few other places that Biden had signed an executive order saying that the veterans hospitals would not give health care to veterans who would not take the GMI. That has not happened yet. They're claiming that it's going to occur, in the next, I think it's like the first or second week in November. No such thing exists. Okay, that has not happened. That's just not true. Okay, I'm not saying they won't go there because we've already seen talk of it hasn't happened yet, but talk of stopping certain government benefits, including Social Security, if you refuse to get the GMI. So we've already seen that come out, and they've also talked about, some Senator Mike Lee from Utah, for instance, uh, introduced a bill, or is talking about introducing a bill. Maybe he already did, that would prohibit states and the federal government from refusing interstate travel without a GMI. Okay, um, all of those things. But that's where we're headed because I've talked about this for a long time. As a matter of fact, about 20 years ago, when I saw how they were starting to build the borders up, some of the things that they were doing along the borders, um, I started mentioning to friends that it looked like to me that they were setting up a situation on the interstates to eventually impose some type of border um, security, some type of border checkpoints. And here we are today. Yeah, Montana is the only. Roosevelt just said this. Montana is the only state that has laws prohibiting forced GMI to everybody. That's right. I think Florida may go there. They're talking about it now. Abbott in Texas. I don't know. I can't figure that guy out. He's so wishy-washy. He's like Jones, Alex Jones. He's so damn wishy-washy. I mean, you think he's strong because he's talking big shot and all that, and then when it comes down to it, he waffles. I don't know. I shouldn't go there, but at any rate. So anyway, in that article, the only thing that I saw that was of a question, as far as my understanding of how uh, the veterans, etc., have been looking at this situation. And there are bad veterans too. There are those who are leftists. Okay, we saw the lieutenant who at the United States Military Academy who had Che Guevara and communism in his hat. He was later taken out of the military. I think he may have been able to get back in, but that thing has been cultured for many, many years. Our military establishment has not been for us for a long time, and I started seeing that when I went to the War College back in 1990 or so, whenever that was. It's been so long ago, I don't remember. But I could see it pretty plainly at that point. The CFR, I showed you my book where I was with Dr. Gregory Treverton of the CFR, and I heard what they were talking about, and I've seen this coming for a long time. So we're entering into a really bad period here. They want to push us to this point, but frankly, as I just said, historically, um, I think politically we're past the place where this any of this can be resolved without a breakdown of order. I just don't see it happening. And then, of course, that'll be a reason to bring in the UN, et cetera, et cetera. But all this was talked about. They didn't call it the United Nations, but this was all talked about in those secret society documents I told you I read back in the middle 1850s. I didn't read them then. They're from the 1850s. I'm not that old. At least I don't think so. So, anyway, that's what we're looking at. So, I won't belabor that point anymore. Prep, pray, stay out of the way, but defend yourselves because they're coming after your kids. They are coming after your kids. And with all the evidence about how bad these GMIs are, the politicians all ignore them. We don't have anybody standing up, not really. Which brings me to my next point. So I was watching, I listen to David Knight in the morning while I'm doing some things. I'm reading, I'm checking stuff, doing little chores, things like that. Oh, yeah, I will. Oh, Vernon Jones. Yes, I'll mention that first. Thank you, Roosevelt. Vernon Jones, who Trump has supported, like he has so many of these other uh, questionable characters, including people he brought into his closest quarters there in his administration, particularly in the White House. He has supported Vernon Jones, who has some real problems. Oh, jeepers creepers. I just got a message that lions at a zoo have tested positive for COVID-19 at Hogle Zoo in Salt Lake City. This is outrageous. Well, they also tested cucumbers, um, yeah, cucumbers, mangoes, avocados have all come back positive for COVID too. So it really doesn't mean anything. It's just showing you how ridiculous this whole system is. But anyway, getting back to the situation with what's going on with the GMIs and Trump and all that. I shouldn't come down on Alex Jones again, but after I got done listening to David Knight, I went ahead and I switched over to Alex. I gave him 15, 20 minutes or so to get some information out. And if he doesn't go there, I figure he's just milking the time and trying to keep people latched in. So anyway, I just checked him out. And unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to quote him directly, but he was giving all this information about what's happening with the restrictions and all of that, and how they're clamping down, and all of that's true. Alex gives you a lot of good information, but I've been calling him out for a long time for his support of Trump. Again, I can't stand Biden. Biden's evil to the core, but Trump is evil to the core as well. He just has a different technique. His method is different than Biden's, but it's got the same end objective. So they're not kidding me. But some time ago, Alex called him out, and then last week I wasn't listening to the show, but somebody came on here as I was doing a live stream and said that Alex had called out Trump again. Well, I went back and looked, and I wasn't really impressed that it needed to be much more severe than it was. But regardless, he keeps saying that he wants to hold Trump responsible for not calling. This is Alex now. Not he'll forgive him for everything, and he says you need to step away from the OWS. So Alex is saying to Trump, you need to pull away from the OWS, and if he doesn't do that, we're going to have to just let him go. He said that a couple of times. I've heard it myself, not in those same exact words, but very similar. Well, today, he doesn't even mention that. I mean, he talks about the OWS and the restrictions around the world and coming here to the United States and all of this, right? Shows the demonstrations that are going on now in the United States, primarily by city, state workers that don't want to submit, doctors, nurses, police officers, military, etc., and the large demonstrations we're getting, which are should have been happening a year ago, but it's better late than never, I suppose. But at any rate, so he's talking about all of that. Doesn't mention that Trump went on Bill O'Reilly. Did you all see that? Did you all see Trump's interview with Bill O'Reilly? Well, Mike Cernovich put it on. Those of you who have Twitter, Mike Cernovich today tweeted out the interview, at least a portion of the interview of Trump with Bill O'Reilly. And Cernovich comes right out and says, well, here we go with Trump again. He's such a lowlife because he's saying that he could get the OWS sold where Biden can't. Totally ignoring all the problems that are associated with this and what its real end result is supposed to be. Not talking about the reset, the cybersecurity, the cyber tracking, all of that. And the danger of it. The danger being the big thing. That this is warfare. Downright simple warfare. So Mike Cernovich brings this up, basically. And, I'm thinking, wow, that's good. Well, guess what Jones said? He didn't bring up Trump still pushing the OWS. He doesn't bring it up and say, I'm done with him because he's obviously he's behind this, he's supporting it, and it's wreaking all this havoc, endangering our children, et cetera, et cetera. Oh, no. He as far as I could tell, he avoided that. What he went to, not saying he's wrong about it, but now he says, if Trump continues to try to get the Chinese, right-wing Chinese, I don't really care, everybody in China works for the Communist Chinese Party, regardless, even the military, the corporations, everything. But apparently Trump is trying to get funding for his social platform that he's building, Truth something or other, Truth Speaks or whatever it is, from a good portion from the Chinese. So now Alex Jones says not that because Trump is pushing the OWS, we're going to drop him. He's proved that he's a liar and a deceiver and we can't trust him. And he's responsible for all this devastation. Oh, no. Now, the Chinese are out of Wuhan, by the way. I got to be careful how many times I say that, all right? This thing will go down, right, the AI? So now you'll have to just follow me. So Alex Jones says, well, if he keeps down this path where he's trying to get them to help him out on this thing, we're going to have to let him go. We're just going to have to turn our back on him, or something to that effect. So him going there to get funds, which I agree is hypocrisy. It's hypocritical to the nth degree for Trump to do that. But it's not killing people. It's not making them sick. That in itself isn't a worldwide attack on humanity. So is Alex Jones decided to forget about Trump's support of the worldwide attack on humanity? Hi, Liza Jean. So I got ticked off at Alex again today. You'll say, Ward, why do you listen to Alex? People ask me that all the time. Why do you pay attention to that shill or whatever you call him, the limited hangout, whatever? I'll tell you why. Because I check out my enemies. Okay? I don't go to Al Jazeera and look at their news information because I enjoy it or because I support them. I want to know what my potential enemies, and I'm not even sure I consider them an enemy, that's just an example, or the BBC, for example. I check other people. I keep track of what they're saying. Alex influences millions of people. He is in their heads. Not saying a lot of what he says isn't right, but as I just showed you right now, he'll tell you 99 things to keep your attention, all right, all concerning and all that, and then say only if Trump goes with the Chinese on this social media platform will he have to toss him. Well, that should have happened with the OWS support. He should, and I've said that before. He should be calling Trump out every single show, probably every single hour, at least once an hour. No. Alex, I've been trying to send twits that probably too tweets because I don't have direct access to Alex. I've been sending tweets to people that I know do have access to Alex, uh, and asking them to call his hand out on the call him out on this stuff. I think that's why every once in a while he'll go a little way, but like we saw today, he shifted. He doesn't want to attack Trump anymore on the OWS. Why? He goes to this social media thing with support out of, you know, that country in the East. As I said, I got to be careful how many times I say it. Very disappointing. Very, very disappointing. Okay. Vernon Jones. I think I got sidetracked of Vernon Jones. Vernon Jones has been implicated in some very severe. That's the other guy. This guy out of DeKalb City, I guess in Illinois or wherever he's from. I don't remember. Who was the mayor or whatever, and has been accused. Actually, been involved in some very serious, not infractions, crimes. It looks like, or at least improprieties. And then he's tried to shut down by threats those who have complained about it. And Trump, this is the kind of guy Trump supports. Well, you know, Trump didn't pardon Assange. He didn't pardon Snowden. He didn't pardon. Oh my gosh, what's the guy's name up in Alaska? Somebody you know here who's been in prison for so many years now. Anyway, all these political prisoners. He didn't release any of them. No, he starts to release, you know, rock stars who are in for drug. Cox, yeah, it's Schaefer Cox. That's one. And then there are a bunch. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate that. And then there's several others like that around the country, and of course the January 6th people, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, he lets out these criminals and his business cronies and contacts, and yet Trump or Alex still wants to support him. Yeah, Trump pardoned Kushner's. Yeah, I saw that Kushner's file. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Ay, 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 ay. And people still hang on to this fraud, this deceitful, lying charlatan. It just frustrates me. And I've seen even Mike Cernovich, who, you know, I know some of you don't like Mike Cernovich. Again, I keep track of a lot of different people, but he even said he's losing patience with people that support Trump, including right wing supporters. And I'm not going to name them. I could name a whole bunch of them right here, you know, including the ones on Twitter that I'm sure he was addressing, the same ones I've addressed before. I can't understand it. And some who called me a moron for calling them out on it, you know, but that's the way it is. So here we are. So Vernon Jones, Trump should withdraw his support from him right now. I don't know why he isn't. Okay, and then I guess I'll go here, and then maybe we'll chat on here for just a few minutes. Um, Dinesh D'Souza. What about Dinesh? Oh, that he's one of his supporters. Ladies and gentlemen, there are a lot of people that are experiencing some personal tragedies right now. I saw one on Twitter today where a woman whose husband had been in the FBI for 14 years and went to get he submitted to getting his um, treatment, died within, I guess it was the first night of receiving it. And this is happening all over. We're losing children. We're losing, and this is all planned. This is all planned. This is to take out people, and not to lunch, as Monty would put it, just to try to get around Uncle Algie, right? And yet our politicians do nothing. And there are those who give them the excuse that they're afraid, that they know the power of this thing. But, and even Alex called some of them out today, including Rand Paul and Ted Cruz and some others, that they can't sit back and be afraid of what might happen to them or their immediate family when they're not concerned about the families of everybody else that they're supposed to be serving. That's cowardice. And it's rampant throughout our society and throughout our political structure. So I can't say I've lost anybody close to me yet that has received it, but a lot of them have come down ill. And I suspect that their life expectancy has been reduced substantially. I'm almost afraid to go into winter because of it. But it's not like I haven't warned everybody. I've I've warned everybody, and a lot of them have scoffed at me, and as they probably have of you. And I fear what's coming. But you can only do what you can do. Well, these tragedies are some of the bad ones, and of course, we spent 20 years in Afghanistan, and then of course in Iraq. We've done all these perpetual wars, never won one since World War II. Not that we should have ever been involved in them in the first place, but we relied into them in every situation. And then we spilled our blood and spent our money, and look what's happened. We turned over the country to the very people that in Afghanistan we said were our very enemies. And not only that, but gave them our infrastructure that we put in there, including Bagram Air Force Base, right, Air Base, and all the military equipment. What did all our people suffer, bleed, and die for? Again, I'm not saying that it was a just war, but you see what your institutions are doing to you. You see what your country is doing to you. And this was all talked about in the 1850s again, how they would cause the United States to get involved in endless foreign wars so that they would spend their blood and their treasure till the point where they would lose everything and then the foreign forces could come in. We're seeing it happen today with the plagues talked about in Revelation. Well, I also have good friends that are having extreme difficulties in their personal relationships, husbands, wives, children, extended family. They're dividing us, ladies and gentlemen, and not just because of the pressures that are coming down with the restrictions and the politics and all that, but spiritual influences that are breaking apart husbands and wives over things that they should have been able to resolve, and they haven't been able to because this evil spirit is attacking us at every weakness that we have. I experience it myself, and I'm not 100% able to keep it away. So anybody who's not even got that much in them to withstand it can't, and they succumb to it, and it's breaking apart loving close families, and it's tragic. So all of this is happening, and it's said that that would happen in the scriptures, right? That father would turn against son, son against father, mother against daughter, daughter against mother, neighbor against neighbor, nation against nation. The one that's never mentioned, because God has such a respect for the marriage relationship, it never talks about the breakup of in that prophecy between the husbands and the wives, but it's happening. But God has sanctified that relationship so much that that man-woman relationship, which the powers that be are trying to destroy, that even God won't go there. As a matter of fact, I've been asked to write an essay uh, on the subject of woman and her place in not just in history at various times, but in spiritual systems and including the Godhead itself. And now I can hear Christians pulling their hair out again. But I can tell you that part of what I'm going to be talking about is the reason why you don't see much about God's feminine side in the Old Testament is partially because of the situation that was used to suppress women. And I'm not a I'm not a feminist, okay? I'm not. But there was this thing about suppressing the feminine side. A lot of the gifts that women have, their intuition, their ability to heal, which is a spiritual gift, but because they weren't doing it in the name of some priesthood or in the name of some god, they've been executed, tortured, banished from societies because the societies did not appreciate the spiritual gifts that they were able to use. And that's what they are, spiritual gifts. It says so right in the New Testament, the spiritual gift of healing, spiritual gift of discernment, the spiritual gift of dreams. Those are gifts, and yet if it didn't fall under an institutional establishment, the women were harmed because of it. Horrible things have happened in Salem witch trials, for instance. Just as an example, and there were other things in history. Another example that I've talked about quite a bit is Hypatia, who was the librarian and head scientist over the Library of Alexandria, and she was killed by Christians because she didn't go along with their demands. So, what I'm getting at is God protects his feminine counterpart. God does not allow his feminine counterpart to be spoken ill of. I mean, his name is taken in vain enough, right? But he protects his feminine counterpart. And I'm not expounding on that any more than this because I don't want to get people so offended that they just shut down. But obviously there was that because it explains it in Genesis 1. They try to, the scholars and the traditionalists and the people that are demanding that God cannot possibly be anything like us, or that we're not anything like him in our makeup, uh, they refuse the male female thing that he talks about, where he says make man in our image, male and female, and they go to the Elohim that he's supposedly talking to, the angels and all that, and that it has nothing to do with him directly. Well, it does. And so evil forces are out there trying to break these relationships up because they are in fact in the image of God, and he's being very successful. And I want to give my heartfelt feelings, that's kind of a double thing there, I want to give my compassion, my condolences to those who are going through the breakup of those relationships at this point. It's very, very sad, and it is ripping us apart. I'm just aware of some of those happening right now. No, it's happened. It happened to me 3 times. Well, 4. And then, of course, Carol died. That doesn't count in the same way. But yeah, okay. So there we are with that. I just wanted to give my concern out to people and my sympathies and my understanding for what they're going through. So I think that's pretty well all I really had today. Let me look at the. Yeah. Yeah. The attack on the southern border is just as bad as it's ever been and getting worse. We're getting attacked on. It's like I said. it's multiple pronged attack, in depth, full spectrum dominance. They're getting us from everywhere. It's not going to be pretty when this thing finally explodes. It's just not going to be pretty at all. Yeah, that's a good point. Robot armies, they're definitely getting those outfitted. We've seen the dog-like creatures that they're even putting like it's crazy. Uh, those 338 Lapuas on them, which are long-range sniper rifles. Oh yeah, I mean, this is just out of control. Uh, the Chinese military and the American military have already had some of these um, wires placed in them that connect them to command and control without the use of radios. In other words, the uplinks to the satellites and to the surveillance system. They already have that, and the Chinese have really moved along those lines. And what are we doing? I mean, I don't want to do that, but what are we doing to recruit people? Well, we have a little girl who looks like she couldn't, pick up a 25-pound, it's a cartoon as a recruiting campaign, right? Who couldn't pick up a 25-pound barbell talking about her family with her two moms and, you know, and that she works in a Patriot battery. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're in trouble. And the veterans, like I said in the description box below, it's all outlined there with that one exception that, and I just want to remind everybody that what they say in there about the VA denying your benefits unless you have the jab, that's not true. That hasn't happened yet. Not saying it won't, but it hasn't happened yet. Yeah, that's the idea. Destroy everything we love, Watchman's Duty. That's the whole idea, to make it so that you're all alone. Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, transgender USA shock troops. I'd say that's a shock, wouldn't you? Why no mention of chemtrails? Come on, Gary Dakota. That's what I really dislike about chat. Somebody doesn't. We don't get to talk about what you want to. That's not your job. Your job isn't to tell me what to talk about. I get talked about like, why don't you bring up Israel? Why didn't you bring up chemtrails? This isn't your program. Okay, I've talked about chemtrails plenty of times in the past, and if you don't believe me, go back and look at my videos. Okay, damn, some people are a pain in the ass. But now that you mention it, I had a lady today send me some pictures. Now, when you get precipitation, you're going to gather things out of the atmosphere that wouldn't be in a sterile environment like in the GMI vials. Okay. However, chemtrails are real. SAIs are real. Even CIA Chief Brennan talked about that. So people who poo-poo the chemtrail problem because of semantics, not calling it by the proper term SAI, you're wrong. Okay, you're absolutely wrong. But at any rate, she sent me some pictures. She posted them on Twitter of some things that she found in the snow when it fell, and some of those things were very similar to the objects that have been found in the vials. Just so you know. So are they spraying them? Well, we already know that they want to have um, uh, aerosols. Again, I'm speaking through things here. Okay, aerosols uh, that will be able to vaccinate us. And that's the only time I'm going to use that term. Okay. Deliver a delivery system through aerosols. So, of course, they could be doing it. So, anybody that says that chemtrail isn't science, you don't know what you're talking about. Look up SAI, strategic atmospheric, I'm sorry, stratospheric atmosphere injection. It's real. Yeah, I just talked about that chicken prepper. I don't think anybody on the East Coast is in danger from that. It would have to be more than just the southern half of the island that would be a problem. I mean, you almost have to have the entire Canary chain, you know, go down in the ocean. You've got a lot between us and them. You've got other islands. You've got the Mid Atlantic Ridge. a lot of other things. I just don't think it would make it that far. The real problem is that it looks like we're having this volcanic activity, as I mentioned earlier, start to pop up all around the world, like Mount Etna in Italy. These things are all connected. As a matter of fact, I was going to ask Jesse of BP Earthwatch, because again, I'm not a volcanologist or geologist. He's not really either, but he's been in that. He's watched it for a long time. And he's an engineer, so he can kind of look at these things and kind of get a better picture of it. Um, I wanted to ask him, with all of the release of the volcanoes that's happening, because that pressure, right in the center of the earth, or underneath the crust, that pressure is high and it's being released through all of these volcanoes. What will that do to increase of earthquakes in other places in the world? Um, Things like uh, continental drift, maybe how fast it happens, tectonic plate drift, stuff like that. I think we could see some, you know, losing the pressure in the earth that kind of holds the outside of the crust together. If you release that pressure like a balloon, it kind of collapses in on itself, and that could cause all kinds of surface problems: rising seas, lowering seas, raising mountains, lowering mountains. What do they call that? Liquefaction, in the soil, where it just drops like a quicksand. So I don't know. A lot of crazy things could happen. So you just got to keep your situational awareness on high. Absolutely. Oh, and I might bring that up too. Don't laugh at your nose mask. The great reject of NWO. I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it. I got to tell you, I have a daughter, and a lot of people, I think, did this. I have a daughter. She's kind of a hoot. And where she lives, they're still requiring masks, and she refuses to wear a mask. So when they accost her on it, and I'm sure a lot of you have had friends that do that, she keeps a what do they call it? It's a panty, but it's the skimpy panty, and she'll put that on. She's so funny. I get a kick out of her. She does stuff. SAI. Somebody tell Truth eight. What's that? Eight Truth seeking what SAI is. I'm not going to repeat it again. There are dangers in repeating these things too much. And sometimes when people do this, nothing against you, a truth seeking, but sometimes when I get questions like, what's this, what's this, what's that, they're trying to make me say it so many times that the Uncle Algae will finally kick in and then either interfere with the transmission or take it down altogether. So that's why I don't cover it, especially not too many times in a row. Just a bad idea. Let me cover this other thing that occurred, and I'm probably going to set some people on edge here. But I was involved in this for about an hour and a half last night, maybe longer. Most of you should know who Dr. Carrie Madej is. I think she actually pronounces her last name Made. But at any rate, she's done a lot of work, as have Doctors McCullough, Dr. Tenpenny, Dr. Merritt, Dr. Malone, a whole bunch of people that have stood up. And if they had stood up only by themselves, Dr. Simone Gold, for instance, the America's Frontline Doctors, those people, if they hadn't all stood up together, a lot of them would probably have been taken out by now. But because they've stood up together and they're public, they stay in the public eye. They're protected, because if they disappeared, that would raise questions, which happened to a lot of holistic doctors a few years ago who were taken out because of their opposition to what was going on in the drug world, right? And supplement world. But at any rate, so whenever you see a clip from somebody, you could even do it to me, and it's been done to me, by the way. People have taken clips of what I've said and put them together, and it looks like I'm saying something totally off the wall or totally crazy or whatever. People say things crazy anyway, but the point is, you can manipulate the videos. I'm not saying that's what happened this time, but she has been giving conference talks. She did one Saturday on cancer at a cancer conference. Very good lecture, by the way. I would suggest you go see it. I think, as another doctor that I talked to discussed, uh, we really need to start pushing on the actual warfare of these things, not just what's in them and their effects, but the actual warfare behind it, how dangerous it is. But at any rate, talking about the GMIs, but apparently she gave a little discussion on um, this entire situation with what happens to you when you receive these treatments. Okay, and there was only a few minutes of it. I'm not sure about how long I listened to the whole thing, but she never said that her detox procedures worked on reversing cellular damage caused by the procedure or uh, reverse the DNA problems of the procedure. She never said that. What she said was is that the detox would help you to eliminate some of the other things that are being put in you that would make you uncomfortable or susceptible to other problems. So she was talking about getting those things out of your system, possibly some of the free floating um, I'll just say it, spike proteins, some of the effects of the interference in the neurological system, things like that, which are all true. I had a situation not too long ago where I had to use a little preparation that I had to put in a bath, and it involved Epsom salt and uh, charcoal, I think it was. Anyways, there were about three or four things I had to put in the bath water, and laying it would help to draw out some of those things that were closer to the surface, certainly not things that are in the internal organs. But anyway, that's what she was talking about. Well, and I don't want to come down too hard on the guy because he's done a lot of good work, but without apparently checking back with her to ask, gee, Dr. Madej, what did you mean by that? I mean, are you saying this or are you saying that? Could you clarify to me? He didn't do that apparently. What he did was is he automatically said, "Oh, I warned you all a long time ago that these people who were apparently for us, when things got down to the wire, they'd turn on us and betray us. And now Dr. Madej is saying that we need to go ahead and get the GMI because she has a detox that we can use after we get it." Well, she never said that, and he said she did. At least I couldn't find it, and I actually got a hold of her and asked her. She said, "No, I never said that. That I never said that. And if that's what it was, they should have clarified it with me if they thought that's what I said." But this guy, who's been on YouTube and has been kicked off multiple times, not because he was saying wrong things necessarily, but just because the system didn't like him. If somebody knows who he is, if you could put it up here, I just don't want to say it because it's not. Yeah, aerosol injection. I'm sorry, ENE. Thank you. Stratospheric aerosol injection. Exactly right. What did I say? Stratospheric atmosphere injection. Yeah, yeah, that was wrong. Um, if anybody knows who I'm talking about here, I would sure appreciate it if you put it up. Let's see if anybody's got it. Um, State borders closing, they want to do that. They're going to have a lot of trouble with that, but they do want to do that. They want to restrict travel. They want to take your ability to travel away from you. So, yeah, that's on the table, and Saki even said so. Okay, nobody's. Maybe it's because it's way down. Let's see if the. Yeah, there you go. Oracle, yeah, Oracle said it. I thought I saw a couple more. Yeah, Pocahontas, yeah, et cetera, et cetera. Maitreya, Albrecht, yes. And I feel. Oh, thank you, Jesse. You're talking about our shields are weak. The magnetic lines of force travel through the cone of the Earth. Weak shields equal greater penetration of cosmic rays, heating the core, grand solar minimum. I want to come back to you, Jesse, here in just a minute, because I just asked a question about what you think this release of pressure would be with all these volcanoes going off, Etna now, of course, the Canary Islands, and all this about releasing the pressure in the Earth and us having tectonic plate movements now that different movements of the earth, increase of earthquakes, things like that. But I'll come back to you. Let me finish up on this. So basically, what he did was is he said he predicted that some of these people that seemed to be for us would go against us later, and then he brought up Dr. Madej's lecture, and then accused her of that, and it was a firestorm of attacks against Dr. Madej, which got me very angry, very angry. If this gentleman is worried about false accusations and about smear campaigns happening to him, for him to have done this was unconscionable. So I defended her for a couple hours last night. I'm not trying to be, a knight in shining armor or anything like that. It was just wrong. It was just downright wrong. And I had to block some people. I didn't want to deal with them anymore. I told her. She hasn't gotten back to me. I don't know if she ever will, because I'm kind of a liability. You link up with me, and people start accusing you of being involved in things that you're not, or just bad things like that they try to do to you, defame you. But uh, uh, I tweeted her, DM'd her, and I said I'd suggest that you not answer these people, that you not deal with them at all. Don't concern yourself with them, because I could tell it hurt her feelings. It really hurt her feelings that they attacked her on this, and just from the little contact I had with her, and I don't think she needs to subject herself to those attacks. So just to carry on with what she's doing, and I put out enough information last night that I really covered the bases. If she wanted to come on and explain, no, I wasn't talking about reversing the cellular DNA damage. I was just talking about the other things that could make you more comfortable. She might want to do that, but I'm not telling her what to do. But the point is, it was all just exaggeration and misrepresentation. And it was very, very bad, very, very sad. Um, all right, getting back to you, Jesse. There you are. So I raised the question earlier about that. I think I just said it. With all of this volcanic activity releasing all this energy and this pressure, do you think we could start seeing an increase in earthquakes just from that? Tectonic plate movement, continental drift, speed it up. What do you think about that? Let's see if I can see any of your answers here. You may have already started to answer me. Um, yeah, he hasn't answered yet. No, Walter, I won't talk to him before I talk to. No, I will not. No, I will not. That was totally uncalled for what he did. Totally uncalled for. Professionalism would tell you not to do that, Walter. Professionalism. That was very disappointing to me. No, I won't talk to him first. I saw what he said. I saw what he used as evidence. No, and if she wants to answer it, that's fine. I hope she does. But I I don't want her to feel like she's got to answer every one of these attacks that he's now caused to be unloaded on her. No way. She's got more important work to do than to mess with those toxins on Twitter. And that's exactly what they are, toxins. Okay, well, it looks like Jesse probably can't get back. It's probably too complicated of a thing to answer on chat, and I understand that. Maybe I'll do this, Jesse, if you wouldn't mind. Ask if you're still watching. Um, if you would, I'm not so sure, Liza Jean, that was infighting. I'm beginning to wonder who the real smear operator is, frankly, with something like that. Ooh, bad, bad. Got me very upset. Anyway, back to you, Jesse, if you're watching. Just to give you an idea, if you could look at that question I'd raised with you and put out a video, maybe that's the best way to do it. Because on chat, I know it's too hard. So maybe you could do that. Look at that and see if you think it's a worthwhile topic to discuss. And I'll just leave it there. Okay, Face in the Sky says we are experiencing an insurmountable amount of pressure and expansion. That yes, the Earth can buckle under pressure, especially in the palm zone. Oh, okay, alrighty, all right. So that's kind of the answer there. Somebody who knows a little bit more. Oh, I know he's a legend. My oldest son was the one that first put me on him, Boru. I know that. But I don't expect everybody to agree with everything everybody says. I don't expect that. As a matter of fact, if that happened, I'd be very suspect of things. But the way that happened against Dr. Madej was inexcusable. Okay, I'll just leave it at that. Maybe he was having a bad day. I don't know. But that was not good. That was very unprofessional, very, very unfortunate. Wow, you guys are really going to town on the. Oh, okay. Thanks, Walter. I appreciate that. Okay. Well, I don't want to keep anybody any longer. It's been a little over an hour. I just wanted to cover those things. Uh, even your best allies, even people that you've known for decades, will sometimes rub you the wrong way. That's not a reason to take a dump on them. I swing too far the other way unless I'm dealing with politicians or military leaders or police. I go the other way. I give them the benefit of the doubt to the point where it's detrimental to me. That's not good either, and I admit that. Okay? But when you deal with people, especially when they're under the types of pressures that these really great doctors who are standing up against the system are doing, give them the benefit of the doubt. Look, I gave Trump the benefit of the doubt for a year, even though right off the bat, even before he took office, remember one of the big mantras during his campaign was, you know, lock her up. Remember that? And he says, yeah, if I were president, you'd be in jail. You remember all that drama and theatrics? And then the first interview that he had, I don't remember who the reporter was. It may have been Maria Bartiromo. I don't remember. Right after he won the election, she asked him, "Well, are you going to go after the Clintons and prosecute him?" And his answer was, "Not that. Well, that's not off the table, or I'm thinking about it, or whatever." No. What did he say? He said, "Oh, they're good people. No, 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 they're good people. They've gone through enough." What? And I still gave him the benefit of the doubt. Okay, he's not sure about his power. He's kind of looking at things. He's kind of feeling his way. I gave him a year to get trained in his job, which was at least 6 months longer than I should have. And in that time, he did a lot of bad things. He did some good things, not saying he didn't, but the bad things he did far outweigh because look at where we are today. But I gave him a benefit of the doubt. So these doctors that are out there standing up for you, these clinicians, these researchers like um, John Rappaport, I think is his name, and there are others. This Dr. Zalewski in Poland, people like that. You got to give them a little space. Don't come down on them. If there's a question, try to reach them and ask them what they meant by what they said. I've done public speaking quite a bit. You wouldn't think so because how I get sidetracked up here. But, when you're speaking to a group, one little thing, well, you've probably seen this happen to me on here. As a matter of fact, today it's happened. One little thing, you've got a train of thought and you're talking about it, and then somebody in the crowd yells out a question or whatever. You get your concentration moved to some other thing for some reason. You have a break in that thought process, and sometimes it doesn't come out quite the way you meant. Give these courageous men and women who are trying to protect you from the evils of this new world order and the governments that are attacking us. Give them a lot of slack. Okay? They deserve our appreciation, even our love. Who else is doing it for us? What politician? Even Rand Paul's not sticking up for us the way these doctors and these health professionals are, these researchers. Nobody except them. Very few clergy are standing up for us. We've got a few, but not many. And I've talked about that. The entire Mormon church leadership dumped on their membership, closed all the churches just like the government told them to. you know, no, we have very few allies. We need to appreciate the ones we've got. That's all I've got, folks. Have a nice evening. It's been an hour and 10 minutes. We'll talk to you later. Take care.